Welcome to Crossing Faiths, the podcast featuring a Christian and a Muslim talking religion and politics. We're back from a winter storm-induced hiatus, and we're going to jump right into it. And I'm not sure what you're going to get today. We're looking at some news headlines, some religion-related news headlines, and John and I are going to banter back and forth. So I have no more of an intro to give for you than that. I was out of pocket because the quote winter snowstorm that came through Middle Tennessee a couple weeks ago killed my internet off and on, and then it was off for like 5 days.
All right, so we should just tell the truth. First of all,
I had a head cold.
You were sleigh riding ridiculously. It was like you had to be on the sled for the government. You were on like every day posting all kinds of nonsense of you guys, something with a four-wheeler, and there were like cows or something. I don't even know what was going on. I thought the cows were pulling you at first.
I was sledding on my in-laws' property, and they have a big hill on their farm, and so I have a video that looks like I was sledding down, racing the cattle, which is a pretty silly moment.
There's all kinds of stuff, and
but
then
it was fun.
You live in the middle of nowhere, so like the Texans, there was no power. You guys, the grid just decided to shut that down.
It wasn't anything like the Texans. I think Middle Tennessee was pretty stable on power, but at least where we were, the internet took a hit pretty hard because we're on rural internet, and it's like phone line based internet here, and you have one branch with ice on it that falls and it kicks off the whole thing. So like our entire neighborhood was down. Like we had kind of expected it, like during the snowstorm. It was kind of off and on, so you'd lose like a half a day. But then after everything was clear, I mean, it was off. I kid you not, for like 5 days with no home internet. So, and reception out here is pretty lame with respect to the cellular stuff. So we were in a pickle on that front. And then it followed up. I had a head cold, and you don't want to hear me on microphone with a head cold. So we're back. What's been occupying your time up there?
As you well know,
how's the cafe?
During COVID, decided to bring the community joy and open up a cafe. And a lot of people, I've been a development professional from all and traveling around the world and doing staff stuff for 20 years, but during COVID, trying to be close to home and bring a little bit of joy. So the cafe is cranking out fresh hot donuts, and that is, when there's a snow day, we stay open. And it's really kind of funny, this nursery school or preschool or some school with small children made up a song about donuts and came in, sang the song, and they sang it outside in the middle of their little winter outfits. And then I brought some kids into the kitchen, and I don't know if OSHA or whoever it is would be care about, and had them making donuts with me, and spent some time with the local community, and it's kind of neat. So they've just been focusing on that, and then some stuff in Washington. So I sit on a number of councils at DHS and a few others. So and it's strange that these appointments are still in place. So so I'm still writing that out. I don't know what that means, but on the multifaith council for DHS and a few other agencies, and spending some time helping them navigate the cultural, ethnic, and religious waters of my tribe. But that's it. And mom and dad are okay. The vaccinations are flowing.
Nice, good.
So dad has his vaccination. Mom gets it today, I guess.
Good.
Yeah. So I've been trying to convince people that, I'm not going to say that the donuts we make, fight against COVID, but it can't hurt. So,
what do you got to lose?
Yeah, I was like, just it's really funny. You get these people that come in and they realize we don't do full breakfasts or anything, and they come in looking for sandwiches and stuff like that, and I go, no, we just have a few baked items and fresh donuts, and they come in and they leave, and I'm like, what kind of fascist leaves without buying a hot fresh donut.
Or a cup of coffee.
It just doesn't make any sense. Get the donut, get a cup of coffee. Don't even get a cup. Just get the donut so you have it on the way to wherever, to spirit your way to. It just doesn't make any sense. And I think
you're a purveyor of You're a purveyor of carbs in a carb avoiding world.
We want to know what my New Year's resolution is? More carbs. More. I want to have pasta every day, and I'm not meeting my resolution at all. So
down here, we have witnessed Krispy Kreme donuts used as burger buns. So maybe that's your shtick. You can introduce that. You can just give the people the protein they want. Just sandwich it in between two donuts.
Well, I'm working on a bunch of different things, but the one thing different between Krispy Kreme and what we do is we do fresh hot donuts to order. So they don't exist. You walk in and people go, "Where are the donuts?" And I go, "Well, they don't exist until you tell me what you want and how many." Nice. And people kind of, their brain biscuits get turning. And I go, "What?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "You plain powdered sugar, cinnamon sugar. This week we have chocolate bourbon ganache. You'd like that. That's
wow.
Harkens to your neck of the woods. You know?
For sure.
And then we did Fruity Pebbles one week.
Oh.
Yeah. And
my
we did
wife
birthday
would love
cake
Fruity
last
Pebbles.
week. What's that?
Yeah, my wife would love the Fruity Pebbles. She was very jealous of your Instagram post of the Fruity Pebbles donut.
Yeah, we're doing the Fruity Pebbles. And then so we had birthday cake last week, and we're going to see what happens this week. I don't know what I'm going to do the coming up week, but it's chocolate bourbon ganache because everybody wanted like a glaze and chocolate. So I had this Kentuckian come in, and nice. And I had him like taste it, and he says, "This is real good bourbon." Because how would I know? So
right.
I'm just making so I'm like, does it taste like what is it? How does this work? And and then we have a Catholic compound on the top of the street.
Right, I remember.
All right, so there's like 2 churches, like a school, and then Catholic Charities. It's literally on the mountain. It's this whole facility, and so we're one of the places that the kids can come down unchaperoned. So got them all fooled, unchaperoned, and hang out and get like a donut and stuff like that. So they all come down and try out the donuts and see what's going on. But yesterday wasn't sure. I go, I don't know. I was like, because they're 7th, 8th, 9th grade, whatever they are. And so I go, this is chocolate bourbon ganache. I don't know. I mean, can you guys have this? And I go, if you guys say yes, I'm just going to give it to you, but I'm not responsible. Like, because there's no alcohol really in it.
Right. The alcohol is all cooked out of it. So
it's cooked out of it.
Yeah. But it all depends on how committed and kind of where on the spectrum of teetotalers a person is.
Well, but you're knee deep in Lent, aren't we? Knee deep in Lent now?
Yeah. But Lent is, that's typically like I don't know. It's more heavily practiced in the Catholic tradition. Protestants, it's kind of a take or leave, very individualistic kind of season.
Isn't it? You have to give something up for 60 days, and then aren't you supposed to be fasting during that time? No.
People do take time to fast occasionally, either by a day or intermittent fasting, skipping a meal.
Okay.
But Baptists and other Protestants don't have a heavy habit of practicing during Lent. Okay. It's just not part of the curriculum. Although there kind of in recent years, past decade or so, there's kind of been a
lots of purple.
Kind of a renaissance of Protestants discovering the season and the practice. So
lots of purple, right? Lots of purple in Lent.
Yeah.
And then don't they take isn't he off the cross? Jesus is off the cross, and it's like a sash or something's up there. Or is that Easter?
Man, you're getting out of my particular tradition.
I used to get the Anglican church was right by the apartment in DC. And
Yep.
then, they used to walk around the block. It was a lot of noise and they used to do something. A lot of noise. And it wasn't just one pass. It was a whole parade for like an hour, 2 hours. And then it would stop. They'd change hands and then be a whole new band of people going around the block. So there was a lot going on. And then, so do you guys do a Ash Wednesday? You guys get the ash? You guys do that business?
No, don't do the ash.
No ash.
It's pretty much a Catholic thing.
So, well,
some mainline, Anglicans and kind of older mainline traditions will do it.
Okay, all right. Well, so all right, we're all caught up. Selling donuts, slinging donuts. Your internet is questionable, and
stable
we
right
lost
now.
you. Yeah, we lost you in the snowstorm, and we lost you because your internet was down. But Tennessee is not like Texas in that they enjoy the services and enjoy being part of the United States. And whereas Texans don't like being part of the United States unless they are really in trouble because by their own hand, and then they ask for assistance from the U.S. government.
Ouch.
Okay, I'm just
ouch.
Listen. You want to know what? Like they should have gone seceded with Burr, and they should have just gone and just left the United States. It would have been fine. What would have become of them? What would have been? The Mexicans would have retaken Texas, because I don't care how tough you think you are as a Texan.
John's not pulling any punches this morning.
I have no patience for the Texans. Crybabies. Oh, they had to turn the thermostat on, and now what? They have heating bills. Oh my God, we have to pay the heating bills? Welcome to the rest of the planet, boys. Welcome to the rest of the planet.
Yeah.
So. I guess everything is big. Everything is big in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, including the whining.
Except the power grid.
Yeah, that's true. So, but I mean, how could they just savage? Was it Cruz? Oh my God.
Oh, that was brutal.
How can you leave your own people in the middle of a crisis and go on vacation?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how it's an indefensible position.
Well, look, politically speaking, it was a bad look, no doubt. It was what did I say, self-inflicted political wounds. But at the same time, look, a state senator has virtually zero responsibility in the context of a public works, a state level public works catastrophe. Until they're asking for federal assistance, but even that comes through the governor.
AOC raised money for the Texans and went down there to assist them.
Well, yeah, but of course she's scoring political points.
Yeah, but here's the thing. As a Christian, here let's make it's a religious thing. As a Christian, right? Forget about AOC. I'm not in AOC's camp. I'm not a fan. I think she's acerbic in her, and I think that she's very good at certainly the multimedia, social media, much better than you and I are. But the fact is that she's a public servant, right? Let's just start with that, and an elected official.
Her job is as a public servant,
right? And so
with particular job responsibilities,
right? And so that's above and beyond the call, right? Is especially it's out of her state, and here is their own guy who's on vacation, and even though it's not within his realm of authority or responsibility, you hunker down with your peeps. Like, why am I here? You say we say I got this. Let's go. So we did Project Resilience. I used my fundraising powers to raise funds for Project Resilience, which is it's $2 million every bump to feed shut-ins and veterans that can't leave their homes. So that's right. And I'm not only help raise the money, I'm bagging food, and been doing that since last July, right? And since the program started. And then I'm not deploying out to Kurdistan. I'm helping people here by making sure that we have donuts and coffee, but then that becomes a community place, and we're then also conducting philanthropy throughout the area here to help, distribute food and communicate, do stuff, even just collecting boxes for people that are coming, that need something to do that. I mean, Cruz went on vacation, dude. Like I went.
It wasn't smart.
I can't even. Like, how high do you have to be? And considering that he was one of the people responsible for the insurrection, you think you'd mind your P's and Q's a little bit. You think you'd maybe have a barbecue for your community on him. You guys are big on that. A little pork, what's it called? Sliced pork situation.
Yeah.
Fire pit.
I still think, look, I agree. I it was a stupid mistake, and I think he should have stuck around given his position. At the same time, the piling on of as if he had like a job some sort of job, like official job responsibility to be there for that kind of thing.
He has a moral responsibility. Don't you think he has a moral responsibility to, when your troops are under fire, you hang out with them and you take cover with them. You don't take the chopper off to safety, then come back when it's all over with.
I don't know. If you've got a family and you don't want to subject them to, and you have the means to not subject them to a miserable couple weeks with bad weather,
you send the family off and you stay.
All right.
Those are the rules.
That's fine.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree that would have made more sense. And clearly he felt the sting of the PR collapse because he came back. Right, which is pretty telling. You don't have a response to issue. I mean, he came back swiftly.
Yeah. All right. So we covered that. Yeah. We're in. I'm going to say we're in agreement about that one, and I'm going to say more.
We're building bridges every day.
I think that we both agree that there's a moral and ethical responsibility to stay with your peeps in the middle of some craziness. I think we both agree that the Texans need to grow a little fortitude when it comes to the cold. If I knew that, I would have walked around with a cooler and just thrown ice cubes at them when I was down there.
Yeah, look, I don't know the details of what went down in Texas on this. At first blush, I was, on the front end, I was kind of, sympathetic to a region. I was sympathetic to public works breaking down in a region that's not used to those kind of sustained cold temperatures, right, and precipitation. At the same time, it comes to find out that like there were indicators and warnings that their power situation was not up to snuff years ago, and apparently nothing was done. So when you have that kind of blood in the water, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for it. I do have sympathy for people who aren't used to their pipes freezing in winter. And don't know the tips and tricks to when the temperature drops below a certain degree. You got to leave those faucets dripping and running. And people from areas like Texas, they just don't conceive that that's a thing. Like you and I know that that's a thing that you have to do, particularly in older homes, and if you don't have pipes and insulation that are more recent.
Right.
Look, where I used to work in DC, it was about 100-year-old house. Right. So we regularly during, December through January or February, when the temperature certainly dropped below the 30s, we regularly had those faucets dripping. And so that if that frozen water starts to freeze, it has some place to expand to. But Texans and Floridians and those kind of folks, they just don't have a category for that. So for those individuals,
the Nevadans are good at it.
Super sympathetic.
I was in Nevada for 10 years, and they would just shut down because I remember it snowed, and someone was like, "Bust out the snowplows, let's," and they were like, "Snowplows? What are you talking about? We just shut the town down." There's Las Vegas because I lived there for 10 years. But I think it would be it would be like if all of a sudden the Mothman appeared here in Kingston. I wouldn't know what to do, but you would know what to do because that's your jam from West Virginia.
Leave. If the Mothman starts showing up,
the bridge is going to break in the middle of the holiday. Don't buy any presidents or presents.
You leave. That's what you do. You don't hang out to investigate it.
If you see the Mothman, yeah, you got to get that. You got to get out of there. That's the big thing.
The moral of the story is you leave. You do what Ted Cruz did. Maybe that's Ted Cruz's response.
Maybe,
I saw the Mothman.
There we go. Now it's come full. Maybe Ted Cruz saw. See, that's what I would have done. Maybe Ted Cruz should have just been like, "Listen, saw the Mothman, saw the movie, and I wasn't going to stick around." You know. That actually would have been it would have been better than his any of his responses, you know.
And all West Virginians would have been empathetic to him. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we got you.
The West Virginians would have been like, listen, you know, boy plays a bridge, you know. But I've seen the pictures of the guy on the top of the bridge that they say is the Mothman, and I don't see anything. I don't. All right, are you for the Mothman or are you against it? Does it exist or no?
What do you mean for or against?
Does it exist?
Do I believe in it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw the movie. Like I grew up in West Virginia, and I didn't know anything about it. I'd never heard anything about it until the Richard Gere movie.
I was waiting for you to say, "Oh, my
mid-90s."
Yeah, the Richard Gere movie. But they've got the stuff. I was waiting. I thought you were going to say like my second cousin once removed married a Mothman. We never met him, but we know he was a good provider. That's what I thought I was going to hear from you. Come on.
I'm not that quick on the comedy.
No, I thought for sure I was going to hear some nonsense story about, well, I don't know. I've never seen the Mothman, don't know the Mothman. I don't have any stories about the Mothman. But I do feel like, I do believe in the hierarchy. So, you know, with angels and all this other, so, you know, jinns, maybe there could be a little, you know, a peppering of some kind of, you know, harbinger of bad news, you know. There are people like that in my life that I know if they come into my life, I know that they're going to viciously rearrange it around, so I need to get out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Mothman is more like a typology of
could be. I think we all have
acquaintances.
Yeah, I think we all have those people that we, you know, I eliminated all of the baggage of my life. I just have my family and my small circle of friends and colleagues around me, especially since DC, you know, DC is one of those places. My grandfather used to say to me, be careful. You need to just walk fast enough because there's always if you walk too slow, someone's going to stab you in the back. That was his advice about DC. So, all right. So headlines. Should we do some headlines? We got some sexy ones.
Yeah. What grabs your mind? What grabs your eye?
I think what did we do? We did. I shot you a few of them. So, and it's great because it's like dueling articles. So, how rising religious movement rationalizes the Christian grasp for power. So is that it's that side?
Yeah, that's from David French.
Yeah, and then on the other side, it's. Well, actually, we don't. I mean, you know, then Langford talks about Senator Langford talks about American experiment of religious liberty. You can have your faith and live it too. You know, so it's interesting because Senator Langford's just, I think, making a broad statement of, and that's Fox News, but he gave some commentary on religious freedom, religious liberty. You know, the criticisms on your tribe is that, you know, it's you know, Christians in charge, religious tolerance of everybody else, but let us have power.
Right.
And the article is really perfect. The article about how rising religious movement rationalizes Christian grasp for power. I don't think it's a Christian grasp for power. I don't think that Pastor Paula and Pastor Jeffers and all those others is a Christian grasp of power. I think it's more around Trumpism and this idea that you call prosperity gospel, but I think it's just about prosperity. You know, it's like it's of the few, and making sure that moves in the direction that is advantageous to them.
Yeah.
I mean, but the other side of it is that they benefit. So, you know, your tribe, your broader community perceives themselves to benefit from whatever's happening as long as that movement moves forward. At least that's my assessment. Even though you and I have had this long-standing dialogue about it, imagine. I mean, you got all these pastors talking about how the election was invalid, that Trump is really president. And then March 4th or March 10th, is he supposed to be inaugurated?
What? Who's supposed to be on it?
What?
You mean January? He's already inaugurated. You were talking
No,
about
the old inauguration.
you're talking about the QAnon rumor stuff.
Yeah, so the old inauguration day was what? It was what?
March. It used to be longer. Yeah.
It was March 4th, right? Wasn't it 4th or yeah. Isn't that it wasn't the 4th? I don't know. It's in sometime in March.
Yeah.
So and then but they changed it. And so the QAnon people are saying that he's gonna be inaugurated this month.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. That's silly. Yeah, so like the prosperity gospel stuff, typically we think about that in terms of money, cash flow, finances, right? And that's the central message to what is typically referred to as the prosperity gospel. But as my former boss has pointed out, you see prosperity gospel, quote unquote, in other venues too. It's not just finances, right? And so a lot of what you talked about is kind of a power grab. Yeah, there's a sense in which you can analyze kind of tenets and claims of prosperity gospel and see how people are basically just looking for power and influence in different spaces of life. It could be health and wellness. It could be political power, right? And so it could be cultural ascendancy, right? If not governmental power, kind of cultural heavyweights, right? And cultural leadership and power. So you see those kinds of elements in things that with elements that harmonize with what we call the prosperity gospel, which, to be clear, is a heresy in the view of little o Orthodox Christianity.
So here we are. So I mean, I think that there's a lot of if you grab power, then there will be a financial benefit eventually, if not a power benefit, right? That will, and that's just look at these last 4 years. I think I'll be honest with you, I'm just glad we're not hearing about the Trump stuff right now.
Right.
I always just tell people, they go, well, what's it like dealing with the administration? I'm like, every day is day one, every day. And so, and they just don't have enough bodies. They don't have enough bodies in they didn't have enough bodies in the administration to handle the workload. Eisenhower building would have 1,000 to 1,500 people in it. They had 100 working there. And they had more security than they had staff. So I don't know. I think that I'm sure glad that they're not, it's just you are able to breathe and have this sense of normalcy right now. The other side of it is, what do you think of the rune, the odal being on the stage? What do you think about this Nazi stuff? Because you and I both know that any and all these, it's not an accident. That's just it's totally not an accident. There's no way.
Talking about the stage at CPAC, the political action.
Yeah, there's no way.
Conservative political action.
You and I have totally, whenever we've done an event, I was in charge of the Capitol Distinguished Speaker Series. There are so many things that happen before the event that people weigh in on, and someone had to make a decision to say yes, and it's quite the peculiar stage organization.
Yeah, maybe. But I also have been in the process of event creators and creations and creative types who are completely disconnected from a lot of historic symbolism and really just don't know any better. So I'm not sure what to make of the stage shape. Although, it looked very swastika-esque.
Well, it was a symbol. It was the rune symbol was a symbol of an SS brigade. So it was. So the problem is, I mean,
it asks the question, right? It raises the question for sure.
I think that there's no way that anybody, like, even if you didn't know what it was, I think the next question would be, why are we configuring the stage this way?
Yeah.
Instead of just normal, because it's such a peculiar configuration. But
you gotta watch where you step on that kind of stage.
I
Not
think
just a big rectangle.
I'm going with purposeful. There's no way someone had to make a decision to say yes, and that whoever made that decision, if they didn't know, it certainly was done purposefully. There's no way that I've never seen nobody configures stages that way.
Yeah.
Well,
the I didn't watch much of the CPAC stuff, but I saw enough of it. I mean, I trust there's still some worthwhile people who show up at that place, but by and large, I think in this era of quote unquote conservatism, a lot of the shenanigans at that conference are pretty disgusting. What was illuminating? Do you see the clip about the MCs of the program were very tiptoeing around telling the audience to wear their masks because they were on private property and trying to respect the private property? It was just a complete fumble, and they got pushback from the crowd, and like that was just really instructive. Like, for crying out loud, like wear your mask. You're in a public place. It's a pandemic. Trends are good. Trends are encouraging, but goodness gracious, you get kind of that hyper libertarian nonsense going on. It's just ridiculous. Not to mention the gold statue of Trump. That was fun.
Yeah, what do you think about the idol worship? Like, isn't that the golden calf, or no?
Well, that was clearly the reaction in the Twitterverse, and I just kind of took a step back and shook my head. It was pretty funny. Even my wife said, "What is that, Bart Simpson?" But look, on the one hand, I mean, I don't know who created that thing, but clearly the optics, when you're already talking about a party who had self-proclaimed, made itself the carrier of, Judeo-Christian values, to then, parade around at its premier conference a literal gold statue of a former president who not only lost his only re-election, but contributed to the election losses of two sitting senators, or two senators of his own party. It's just mystifying. At the same time, it might not be the golden calf. It could just be Trumpism tackiness, which is also a possibility.
I'm going to say
it's somewhere between kitsch and idol worship.
Trump golden calf statue worshipped at CPAC. Love it. I mean, like, I'm sitting here going, look, morals and values done, Judeo-Christian values. Maybe it's some kind of strange reenactment of the golden calf on Mount Sinai, but Moses isn't there to drop kick the thing over the mountain. So,
I mean, can you imagine the reaction to someone like Reagan or either of the Bushes to seeing a golden statue of them, a golden caricature statue of them rolling around? I know any president, but or Jimmy Carter, for crying out loud. But I want to focus attention on conservatives and
isn't Mr. Peanut? Isn't Mr. Peanut Jimmy Carter? Is it Mr. Peanut and Jimmy Carter?
He has peanut farm background as far as his childhood, I think, too, and still teaches Sunday school. He's saw news a few. That's a religious headline. Jimmy Carter was back teaching Sunday school. I think the story was after having received a vaccination. So he continues to serve at his local church, which is a pretty cool image of a former president.
So how dead is the moral authority of the Christian evangelical community these days?
Pretty bad. As a collective in the public eye, I think it's pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, if it's strange because I work with a lot of multi-faith communities and a lot of evangelicals. A lot of them are repositioning themselves as Democrats right now, as as never Trumpers like you, but they weren't that way during the administration. I think that it's interesting, but the best people to consult on that are Muslims. That's actually because we're the scapegoat for everything, and now there is stuff that any population can be doing whatever, but we have an Abrahamic faith that's just, and you have everyone else that's always kind of, because of terrorism, used us as the scapegoat for all kinds of things. But the fact is that we have this explicit example, and I've always cited examples across the history of mankind. But the fact is that now we're in this strange struggle in our country where Biden is trying so hard to create consensus. I don't know if he's doing it, and your community is in the middle of a civil war, arguably. Maybe not. I don't know how open it is. But I know that
it's pretty open.
Yeah, I mean, there's
pretty open.
It's interesting because there's quite a few evangelicals that I deal with that are just kind of trying to do business as usual, even though they were enjoying the Trump administration's policies and stuff, and they may have not have been never Trumpers, but they certainly were enjoying the freedoms that they had and the movements and access that they had.
Sure.
And they're trying to perform stuff as business as usual. But I know our community struggles back and forth with what's going on. I mean, all the Muslim Brotherhood guys are warming up to the Biden administration, and they're trying to block any religious minorities within the Muslim community from having access. So, I mean, that's always the struggle with us. So, but I think that, where's the leadership in your community? Where are they?
It's fragmented. And so I think you see people trying to figure out where to go next, and figure out how to get institutions kind of realigned. Part of the problem is you got a lot of evangelicals who realize the predicament our movement is in. And when I say evangelicals, typically I mean that with a theological definition, right? People who fit a certain criteria of Christian conviction and doctrine that fits within the grand scheme of little o Orthodox Christianity. The term white evangelicals is now, for 3 or 4 decades, has been a highly politicized term, very partisanized term. And is not really reflective of everybody who actually is functionally evangelical. So with that caveat, people who are theological evangelicals, there's been debates over the last few years about whether to keep using the term or not. Some people deciding to stop using the term to describe themselves, even though they haven't shifted in doctrine, right? It's just a branding kind of effort, and people saying no, this is something that's worth keeping. So you see those kind of debates a lot. You see a lot of, and then you have a segment of evangelical life, maybe dominated by those white evangelicals with a little more of the political identity and history, who frankly just don't see the damage that the last 4 or 5 years has wrought on our movement, and they don't really see it, and all they see is threats from the Biden administration. They don't see kind of the internal threats to our credibility in the public space, and they're between those two camps of evangelicals, things are pretty tense. You do see some, what I would describe as kind of proxy warring against among some evangelicals who they try to make a stink about something that doesn't look like it's about Trump, but it's really about Trump, right? It's
right.
So I was on Nap Nasworth is a religion journalist who used to work at the Christian Post for many years, 8 years, who covered some of our work when I worked at the Southern Baptist Convention, and I was on his podcast a few weeks ago talking about some challenges that Russell Moore's been dealing with within in the Southern Baptist Convention, and look, Southern Baptists are, it's part of our DNA basically to argue with one another. And you're going to have differences of opinion, but a lot of the flack that Russell Moore's getting is straight up because he did not support President Trump and actually challenged Trump and evangelical commitment to him. And so he's got to put up with a bunch of folks that want to make his life miserable at the RLC, even though by and large, Southern Baptists, through the actual polity and actual mechanisms of our convention, have repeatedly backed Russell Moore, including swatting down an attempt a few years ago to defund his agency. That didn't go very far. And so Southern Baptists writ large, I think, are really behind him. But you do have some factions who are really didn't like his position on Trump. And so you see some proxy warring things like that going around. But, hopefully what evangelicals, theological evangelicals, the challenge that is in front of us is to have actual, theologically credible people leading the way, as opposed to, people who are more business tycoons like the Falwells of the world, who make a name for themselves in evangelical life as leaders, but really they don't have the theological, really pastoral view of things. And then coupled with that, you got to have evangelical churches who take basically the silent route on politics. Look, I mean, unless you have some form of intentional public theology, right? It says, look, we're looking at scripture, we're looking at the current moment, all these things wrapped up, like we think this is how we ought to function. I'm not even talking about particular Christian ethical issues and their positions. I'm talking about how we engage and participate in the public square, until evangelicals by and large, and specifically local churches, develop those muscles. We have nothing to say to the people that we would accuse of idolatry and pandering to raw political power. So you have an exaggerative place. You have churches who are partisan. You've heard me on this soapbox before. You have churches who are partisan, who are comfortable affiliating themselves, say, with, in this case, President Trump. Or you have churches who are just silent and don't want to talk about things for the protection of what they say is evangelism and discipleship. But my soapbox is that we need church discipleship to train us how to think about politics. Otherwise, if we silo politics off to the backyard, then we're basically saying that the Bible has nothing to say for our politics, which limits God's sovereignty and care for humanity. So that's my short soapbox. You can respond.
No, you're always about the public space and the good witness, right? You talk, that's something like that, good witness, the big witness, something. But the thing is that you've got, like I said, I have a lot of evangelicals that are just business as usual.
Yeah.
And there were some evangelicals that were embedded in agencies before he left, and they're still there, and will be there because they're careers now, which is a typical thing that happens when you have a leaving administration. They make an announcement for 3 days. They tell somebody, we want you to apply for this job. They apply for the job, and they make sure they spirit them to that spot, and everybody else who applied, it goes that, so, and that happened. And that's normal, I think.
That's normal. That's happening in the Biden administration.
Yeah, it happens. Well, it happens in every administration. That's normal. But I think there's just a tremendous amount of. I mean, you had religious appointees all the way out at the top levels of our government, the White House, and the White House Faith Initiative put religious commissars in every agency. Evangelical power was at its height, regardless of the fact it was prosperity gospel. It doesn't matter. That it's still,
you at least had the appearance and presumption of evangelical
Well, it's the same thing in Islam. Oh, well, you want to know what? You got the terrorists doing this, and everybody says everybody else is guilty by association. You need to govern, you need to do your own housekeeping. It's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and I would argue, it's, we have to, as Muslims we have to pay for all the criminals that are that happen to be Muslim. We got to pay for all their crimes, but Christians don't have to pay for all the criminality that occurs by people who commit a crime but happen to be Christian. So,
Right. Yeah.
but in this case, it's so explicit, and then on top of that, the power's there. And I'll be honest with you, what happened? There really isn't a lot of wins for the Christian evangelical agenda. I mean, abortion. I mean, aside from stacking the courts with conservative judges, constitutional conservatives that are judges. I mean, and Barrett's a Catholic, but if you look at SCOTUS, I mean, Gorsuch is. You ever hear the guy talk? The guy is like straight laced, the dude. That's gonna. He's interpreting the Constitution. Kavanaugh, I can't weigh in on, other than I think that he had a profound interaction with Ginsburg before she passed away, and basically said to him, and I'm paraphrasing, from my thing, but basically said to him, "Look, it doesn't matter what happened. You're here, and you need to either your constitutional, judge or not." Either you're there or you're not, and either you're going to arbitrate on the Constitution, either as a conservative, as someone who has strict interpretation of the Constitution or not. And I think that that did something to his self-esteem. All right. Now this is a confluence of a number of conversations while I was in Washington, while he was appointed, and interacting with those circles. Barrett, I have no idea. I'm not sure she's experienced enough to be a judge, but be on SCOTUS, but I think she's the most partisan person there, at least on the right. I think so. I mean, my advice to her would be look, now that you're there, it's time to take a walk around the courthouse and look towards the horizon and think about the endless possibilities of what could happen. But I think she's very, very young for the job, and she wasn't a judge for that much time before going into SCOTUS or being appointed. So, and
she's not significantly younger than any of the other appointees.
No, her time on the bench. It's her time on the bench, and then from there, there's the whole business with McConnell and Lindsey Graham, who didn't allow Obama to appoint somebody within that last year. And then that
was shrewd politics.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, and then you have this sort of rush job. So, that in itself is it's legal, and it happened. Like I said, the Democratic Party, they just don't have a bunch of fighters. There's nobody. The leadership there is highly questionable, and that's why they need to collaborate more with people like you and me, so that they can understand that there's a coalition out there to help bring America to where it needs to be, regardless of what party's in power. But they don't, that's not who they are. So
nope, it's not.
Yeah, well, but neither side is, to a certain degree. I have a lot of Republicans or conservatives that say I'm a coalition builder, but their coalition is all, white dudes, and Christians. It's not a coalition of people that are multi-faith and this, that, and the other stuff. So, but anyways, anything on your mind, Bob?
I think that's it. I think we've got a show here.
All right.
I think we've got a show.
We got you back. You got your sea legs back.
Say what?
You got your sea legs back?
Yeah, got my sea legs back. I've got doctoral seminars next week, so I'm pecking around at the keyboard pretty aggressively right now with assignments. But yeah, we're get snowstorm and head colds behind us, and nothing but spring ahead of us. notwithstanding Punxsutawney still a little winter here.
Sounds good, bud. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
All right, man. Thanks, my friend.
Yeah, so.